So let's get started. So this is part two. What we're talking about today is building emotional resiliency. We did the first part of this on Tuesday, and it's a lot to cover. So I wanted to kind of separate it out and do the second part of this today. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Robin, and I am a personal empowerment coach, a resiliency coach. I work a lot with first responders and also with women. I do a She is Shatterproof program, and this is a big component of that curriculum. So I wanted to just sort of show you this in a layout. This is kind of how I started last time too. I'm just going to breeze through it a little bit faster, just for those of you that didn't make the first one. The first component of this, excuse me, is building emotional resiliency or mastering emotional resiliency. And the reason that that's so important is because, part of resiliency is really, it's like bouncing back, right? It's coming back. And so when we have something that happens to us in our life, when we have a grief or a disappointment, or we get angry or whatever it is, or there's a trauma that happens, it's like, there's an experience that we have to go through to be able to come back from that, right? And I think we've all been through that before. And that's really what resiliency is. Yeah. It's the coming back from something. And sometimes that process can take us years or months, but it doesn't have to. Sometimes it can take us 5 minutes or a week or whatever. And so the better we get, it's really a skill that you can learn and develop and get better at. And the more you practice it, the better you get at it, right? And so when I, have a disappointment or a relationship that ends, or somebody, a traumatic event at work or a fight with a boss or something like that, that can really rock you sometimes, especially if it hits a wound, like a trauma wound. It can really have a deep impact. And so resiliency is being able to process that and come back from it, right? And we get better and better at it. And so the first part of that is processing difficult emotions, which is what we talked about in the last class. And so I just wanted to kind of show you how this all fits together. And so what do we do with those difficult emotions? What do we do when we're feeling grief, resentment, regret, anger, confusion, frustration, not enough, lack of self-esteem, a lot of things that come up for us. And so that's the first part. But the second part of emotional resiliency, it's not just about the bouncing back and processing the hard things and what do I do with making sense of why am I so angry? But it's what do we come back to? What is the baseline? And so the second part is deciding, again, what is it that I want my life to look like? How do I want to feel? I know I don't want to feel frustrated about my job. How do I want to feel about it? I know I don't want to feel resentful of my spouse. How do I want to feel about her? And so it's not just about getting rid of the resentment. It's about plugging in and learning how to cultivate the feelings that you do actually want to feel, right? And so then that's the second part of all of this, is cultivating positive emotions, right? And so what I said the first time is, this is great because not only do we get to feel better, but it's even bigger than that. What I'm going to show you today is the emotions that we're feeling. There's power in emotion, right? And so it actually creates your life. It creates all the results that you have in your life. And so that's what's so powerful about it. And that's why the second part of this program is creating a life you love, because I think that's really why it matters. My mission statement and the whole reason that I'm here doing this work is to help set people free from whatever it is that's keeping them stuck and holding them back from really experiencing life the way they want to experience it, right? Experiencing relationship and love and career and contribution and all the things. And so that's what sucks about these negative emotions. That's why getting stuck in these mental and emotional ruts is so painful. It's not just the way that it makes us feel. It's the way that it impacts our life. Does that resonate with anyone? It's not the experiencing shame about my body or experiencing shame about my bank account in and of itself doesn't feel good. And so I want to get out of shame just for that reason. But it's bigger than that, because when I'm stuck in shame, it's not just that it doesn't feel good for me. Now I'm starting to lash out at my partner, at my kids. It starts to spill over into the other areas of our life. So it doesn't just stay contained to us. It spills over. And that's the same when we're feeling positive emotions, right? So when we're able to process through the negative stuff and release that, not only are we free from impacting and taking that out on the rest of the world, but now we also are able to figure out, how can I be excited, enthusiastic, motivated? How can I show up in the world the way that I actually do want to show up? And then that begins to spill over too. Does that seem like something that you guys would be interested in learning about? These are the tools. This is one of many tools that you learn. And so this is why we start with this, okay? But this is the why it matters, creating a life you love. And we talked about this a lot last time, right? The first step of this program that I'll run people through is claiming your power. And the reason that we claim our power, and that has to do with getting enough sleep, broadening your bandwidth, making sure you're not stretched so thin. This is where we learn to draw boundaries and manage expectations and all that kind of stuff that helps us to maintain our energy, because you need that too, to go after whatever the things are that you want. And then again, we talked about clarity last time. And that's the second part, is really finding your path, figuring out what is it that I want in my life and why. And then the last part is the action, right? And so I'm going to talk about this several times. So often we want to go straight to the action piece, right? What do I have to do in order to feel better? What do I have to do in order to have more money? What do I have to do to get this person to stop doing this behavior that's so hurtful to me, right? And so we so focus on the action, but it's clear down at the end of everything. So all these other pieces really have to come first. And I'm going to show you more why. And so what I'm going to show you today is called the model. And this is a part of cultivating positive emotions. So this is part 2, is what we're going to talk about. How do we cultivate positive emotions? And it's related to, again, this action piece, okay? Because so often that's what we want. We want to change someone else's behavior. We want to change the way that we're feeling. And so we want to know, what do I got to do that? And what I'm trying to show you is that there's a little bit of a process that you go through. And when you can really master and understand that process and practice it, it gets faster, it gets easier, and it gets better. And you'll actually be able to sustain that change. Because when you just focus on trying to change the action or change the behavior, it's like I talked about, white knuckling your way through a diet, and you can do it for a little while, but then you gain the weight right back. Or you can nag a partner into doing something different. Stop being so mean, stop losing your temper, stop whatever. And they'll be able to do it for a little while, but there's a belief system that's in place that's driving that behavior. And that's why you gain the weight right back. That's why the partner isn't able to just immediately be a different person. That's why your boss can't stop being so critical. Can you just stop being so critical? Well, it's not that easy. There's a whole system in place that's driving that behavior. And so you have to understand what's driving the behavior, and you have to understand that belief system in order to process it, release it, and then choose a new one. And that's how sustainable change happens. Does this resonate with anyone?
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
It's kind of like I really loved the beach ball analogy you used last time. That was, it really, I love, it's really helpful for me to have imagery and stuff for different concepts. But yeah, it's like the more you push it down, the bigger it will come back up.
Totally. Yep, exactly. And it's like, gosh, well, this will just work. I'll just force this change. I'll just, make my argument louder. I'll do whatever I have to do. And it's like, we don't actually go through a process of finding the source.
Mm-hmm.
And because that takes work and time, and we actually have to look at it. And a lot of times we get impatient too, I think.
Right.
And sometimes it's just painful, especially when it has to do with us and our life and our change. We don't want to necessarily do that because it's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But until we do, it's just going to keep coming back. And so that's why we get stuck in patterns. People are like, why do I keep repeating the same pattern? Why do I keep, sabotaging this relationship? Why do I keep having to quit a job? Why is it that I'm having to move every year? Why am I always running? Why am I still fighting with my mom? Whatever. Why can't I just forgive this person? So these are where I think patterns come from. So today, what we're going to talk about is, like I said, yesterday was part one, was processing the difficult emotions. And so today I'm going to talk about how do we cultivate the emotions that it is that we actually want. And so what I'm going to introduce to you today is something called the model. And Brooke Castillo is my life coach that I use, and her program, and she's the one that developed this specifically. It's also based on the work of Byron Katie. If you read any of Brené Brown's work, the thing about anything that's like a truth or a universal truth and the way the world works is you'll see it over and over again, right? And so these same concepts, you know, Tara Brach, you know, is one who talks about a lot of this stuff as well. And you'll see it in multiple different teachings, just kind of presented in a different way. I love the way Brooke teaches it, and I use it a lot. And so that's what I'm going to show you today. Okay. And so I'm going to go through how it works, and we're going to talk about it. I'll give you a couple examples. And then what I'd like to do at the end is spend a little bit of time allowing you guys to actually apply it. Okay. Does that sound good? Because then you can actually see like kind of how it works.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the model. There are circumstances in our lives. Okay. And circumstances are just neutral facts. Okay. A situation, a circumstance. Circumstances are what actually trigger. They trigger our thoughts. Okay. And so when we talk about anxiety, overwhelm, PTSD, you know, especially with PTSD, we talk about being triggered, right? Something happened and I got triggered. And then I have all these feelings and these emotions, right? And they're really uncomfortable. And then then I start drinking. Then we have coping mechanisms, and all the problems in our life can be really plugged into this model that I'm about to show you. So all of this, you know, and so I want to kind of point that out to you, that this is where triggers happen. Okay. And so now thoughts, this is really important. This is what this is the part that Byron Katie kind of brought to light. And Brooke was like, holy shit, this is life-changing. Thoughts are what produce. What do our thoughts produce? Karina, do you know? She might be driving again.
No, I'm not driving. I just had to figure out how to unmute. Thoughts produce emotions.
Yes, thoughts are what produce our feelings. So we think that we're feeling a way because of a circumstance. My husband makes me so angry. My wife makes me so angry. You know, my job makes me feel frustrated. Whatever.
Right.
But it's never the circumstance. It's never the thing. It's always your thoughts about it that are producing your feelings. Okay. And so again, this is super important because, so when we talked about processing difficult emotions, this is kind of what we focused on. What do we do when we're in a shame storm? What do we do when we're so anxious and having a panic attack? What do we do when we're feeling so afraid that we just don't know what to do? What do we do when we're running? What do we do when we're doing that thing again that we always do? What do we do when we're pushing someone away? What do we do when we're lashing out? Okay, because sometimes when you're really stuck in the emotion, it's hard to see the forest for the trees. So you have to start with kind of, you know, neutralizing it, the beach ball, finding the valve, letting some air out, you know. But the reality of it is the fear of emotional pain is what causes so much suffering. We don't want to feel our feelings. We don't want to feel like a failure. We don't want to feel rejected. We don't want to feel humiliated or ashamed. And so the avoidance of that feeling is what drives so much of our actions, or our inactions too, the things that we don't do. I'm not going to get close. I'm not going to let someone in. Why? Because we're afraid of a feeling. And so we feel a different feeling instead. I don't want to feel rejected, so I'm just going to feel alone instead. I'd rather feel lonely than rejected.
This is like why anger is a secondary emotion, because you don't want to feel grief or loss, so you'd rather feel anger.
Exactly. Right. So so we're always choosing our emotions, but so often things are subconscious. Like I said, we get to choose our thoughts, but they can feel really automatic and reactive, right? It can feel like it's not a choice. but it is. And so again, it takes practice to really get a hold of it. But absolutely, we think it's just so automatic, but it's not. You're right, Karina. I'm not wanting to feel this thing subconsciously. We know our whole amygdala, our nervous system is built, to avoid pain. And there's certain pains that, again, they're related to a trauma wound that, like, that's the big one. That's the one I can't feel. I can feel confused. I can feel indecisive. I'm comfortable with indecisive. I'm comfortable with disappointed. I'm comfortable with aloneness. I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with isolation. I'm comfortable with not being intimate with someone. I want it, but I've done it my whole life. This I can do. That vulnerability and fear of rejection, and what if it doesn't work out, or what if that I can't, no. They're both feelings, but there's some negative feelings or emotion that we're just more comfortable with. And so we do that instead of, right? Does that make sense to anyone?
Yeah.
Has anyone ever done that? I know I have.
Last night?
Yeah.
So our feelings then are what generate action. So the actions that we take are generated because of that feeling, right? I'm feeling afraid, therefore I'm going to do X, Y, or Z, or I'm not going to do X, Y, or Z. I'm feeling angry, and so, right? And so the feeling, or even I'm feeling love, so I'm gonna make a phone call to someone and let them know, or I'm gonna, everything. If you think of anything that you've accomplished in your life that you're really proud of, a relationship, a child, a career, a degree, whatever, all of the things in your life that you've accomplished have resulted from it's all because of a feeling. If you really track it back, why did I go into medicine? Why am I a paramedic? Why did I want to do this job? People ask you that all the time. Well, because, I wanted to blah, 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 blah. I wanted to make a contribution. I like being of service to my community, right? That makes me feel good. Why did I go to school? Well, because, I love to learn. That's what people, I love to learn. How does it make you feel when you're learning? It makes me feel excited. It makes me feel curious. It makes me feel, enthusiastic. It makes me feel, I feel proud of myself. There's a feeling behind it. Why do you do social work? Because I love, I love to help. There's always a feeling, of generosity, of contribution. There's something there that it makes you feel good to do this thing. Why did you have kids? Love is a feeling. Contribution, right? Generosity is a feeling. So our feelings are what generate our actions, right? We feel a certain way, and so we take action based on that. And then our actions, this is the part that we all want, right? We all want to figure out what do I just need to do in order to get this result? What do I need to do in order to make my business double next year? What do I need to do in order to fill in the blank? But we skip all this.
This is really helpful.
Yeah.
Like this. Because I mean, yeah, when I feel a feeling, it's hard to know where it comes from and what to do. And
yes,
but seeing it like this really, really helps me think like, okay, these feelings are coming from thoughts. They're not because,
yes,
whatever.
it all makes sense. And here's the thing too, and this is what I said in the last one, just because you get to choose how you're feeling about something, it doesn't mean that you never feel a negative emotion. You might want to feel angry. You might want to feel sad. You might want to feel grief. You might want to feel, whatever it is that you're feeling. You might want to feel frustrated. That's okay. The reason that I'm teaching these tools is not so that you never feel a negative emotion. Life happens. We all are going to feel negative emotion. That is part of the game, people. That's part of it. Resiliency is not about never falling down. Resiliency is not about never feeling a negative emotion. It's not about never making a mistake. It's not about being perfect. It's about, what do you do when you fall down? What do you do when you feel hurt? What do you do? What do you make it mean, right? And so it's about being able to bounce back. And you can do it. So, and the faster you do it, the faster your life moves forward. So it's not about not feeling negative emotions. It's about not getting stuck in them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not about feeling that trauma wound. It's about not letting it take over your life and move into reaction, avoidance, coping mechanisms. It's about saying, oh, I know this feeling. I know where I am. I know what to do with it.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Sorry. So I have PTSD. So many times I jump from straight into action.
Yes.
Because I go to just right away. So is there sometimes in the moment where you have some type of thing that would help to slow down so I can catch what the trigger and the thought and processes that I'm going through in the moment?
Yes.
Sometimes I just jump right to action and I can't catch myself.
And that's and that's exactly what all of us do, right? And that's where I'm trying to help you see like how it works. That way you can slow down, because that's really the answer. And so when you're feeling really triggered, that's what we talked about in the first one, is like recognizing that it's happening. And sometimes you recognize it because of the feeling in your body. Like, and I've done this work long enough that I'm like, oh, okay, my, because like I said last time, my cage is rattling. Like I can feel it. Something's I can feel that feeling in my gut. My chest gets tight. I can't breathe. I'm going to the bad place, not to like make it bad, but you know what I mean? The place that I don't want to be, and that I can really get stuck. And so that's where, again, that recognizing that it's happening, if you're able to step aside and find a private place to go through that process that I talked you through last time, that's really helpful. The first thing to do, though, if you can't, like I said, is to really just breathe and just know, okay, this is just a feeling. I'm having a reaction. Again, anxiety, fear, PTSD, you're being triggered. So something happened that is triggering a thought. That thought is what is causing everything you're feeling. Your body is more than likely not in physical danger, correct? Usually everything your immediate is actually okay. But I'm like freaking out, man. Why? Because there is stuff racing through my mind, whether it's a memory, whether it's a thought or a belief. There's something happening that my amygdala and my brain is sending out all kinds of like, okay, this is what's happening, right? And our nervous system is responding to that. It's very
And sometimes, because I also have PTSD, sometimes I can't remember the thought from the latest circumstance, but I can remember the thought, like if I allow myself the space to do this and to actually sit in my emotion, I can remember the thought that created the PTSD. Whatever thought I had when I would go to that dark place and that PTSD is triggered, I can remember whatever I said over and over in my head. And so then it's like, well, it doesn't really matter this last thought. Like, this is my life path. And I might have been in this situation with this person, but instead of necessarily healing this relationship right now, I'm going to now concentrate on healing myself and trigger and feel that trigger.
Yeah. Well, and again, the more you practice this, the better you get at it. And so
Right.
sometimes when I talk to you through processing the difficult emotions, so like you're feeling triggered, you're feeling triggered. I also have PTSD. I have a chronic anxiety. This is like, and it's, so this is not, I still have it. I will probably the rest of my life. But
Right.
I come back so much faster. I'm so much stronger. I'm so much more resilient than I used to be. And so even in the midst of all of that, I can feel the fear in my life and I can move forward anyway, right? And so that's the goal. And so when you're feeling triggered, like I said, watch that first video, but my recommendation, breathing, getting grounded, and processing through what you're going through. And if you want, you can shoot me an email. Everybody that's on this or listening to this call, feel free to shoot me an email. If you guys want to go through this more in person, like one-on-one too, I absolutely am willing to do that with you. We can do a free initial consultation. And then also if you want to work with me beyond that, even I have, a couple slots open for this coming month where I'm offering some pretty phenomenal discounted offers, just because I want people to be able, this has been a really hard year and I want people to be able to do this. I've been receiving a lot of emails from people that are, really experiencing a lot of hard stuff. So that's the thing. When you're feeling triggered, calming down, breathing, recognizing that, okay, I'm feeling triggered. My body's reacting to this. And just knowing that the thoughts are causing it, as we walk through this and you see how it works, for me, sometimes that helps. I may not be able in the space to process it all right then, but just knowing this is just being caused by my thoughts. There's a thought in there. I'm going to find it later. For right now, I know I'm okay. I'm just going to breathe. It's just a vibration in my body. And then there's a whole process to really being able to process that through. And I would recommend that you go back and watch those videos, and we can talk about it more later if you want. Does that help at all for now?
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Recognizing that you're being triggered is the first step. And then you got to process it through. You got to find the thought that's causing it. You have to find the belief system it's attached to. It might be attached to a trauma wound. A lot of times PTSD, like at work as a paramedic, it's funny, like I can run a call that won't trigger me at all, but it totally triggers someone else. Why is that? The circumstance is the same. We were in the exact same call. Why did it trigger that person and not me? Because it's oftentimes whatever it is that's triggering us, it's because it's attached to a deeper wound. And so that's where connecting the dots, like what Karina was talking about, when you really dig into this work deeper, you're like, oh my gosh, it makes so much sense. And so there's belief and there's identity and there's all this stuff that's attached to it. Okay, so let's do some examples. Are you guys okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to show you how it works. And then I would normally do several of these. But since we're running kind of short on time and I really want you guys to be able to do the end of this and apply it, I'm just going to do a couple. Okay. So I'm going to start with the circumstance. So once you learn and master this model, you can start from anywhere. Okay. So let me show you how it works. I'm going to start with the circumstance. Circumstance is husband said, I want a divorce. Okay. This is neutral. This is just what he said. My husband's an asshole is not neutral. He's a jerk. That's not neutral. That is an opinion. Okay. So a circumstance is my job sucks. That is not a circumstance. Okay. That is a thought. Do we see the difference?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So husband said, I want a divorce. What is the thought that you think that might trigger?
My husband's an asshole.
Sure, totally. You could think that. Yeah. What else could
Free
you?
at last, free at last, free at last.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
What am I
Finally.
gonna do?
Yeah, what am I gonna do?
What about the kids?
What about the kids? Totally. Yep. And that might produce anxiety, right?
And anger.
And all kinds of things. Yeah. Let's try it. So what about this one? He doesn't love me anymore. That's a thought. You can see how somebody can have so many different thoughts. You get to choose what thought you think. But again, it may not feel like a choice at first. When you're first starting this, it might just be that's what comes. It's reactive because neural pathways in your brain are really there. It's habits. And so you might have been practicing this thought your entire life. If your wound is a rejection wound, it might be so easy for you to jump to that. He doesn't love me. You might have been practicing a thought your whole life. This person's not trustworthy. I can't trust them. You've got people that have issues around trust, right? And they've got walls and intimacy stuff. Like they have been practicing that thought their whole life. So all it takes is one little thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I feel like if you make a choice to change your thought, that can kind of change the whole cycle. Like the circumstance won't change.
Exactly.
Like, you can make a choice to change your thought.
Yes. And that is the only thing that you have control over, really.
Yeah.
You can't control other people.
No.
You know, and so we try, and
But
that's where we try to manipulate.
Control everything else.
What's that?
But you can control everything else.
Right. And it starts here. It starts with your thoughts.
Yeah.
And a thought becomes a belief. When you practice a thought over and over again, it becomes a belief. You start to believe it, right?
Yep.
When I've practiced the thought for so many years, I'm not lovable. There's evidence. And I would always find the evidence to back up that belief.
Yeah.
Right. It become an identity thing, and in changing your identity can be really hard and painful. Same with the trust stuff. They're not trustworthy. He's not trustworthy. See, and you can find the evidence. Your brain will find the evidence for whatever it is you want to believe.
Yep.
And this is the thing is like you get to think a thought even if everybody else in your life is telling you that you're delusional, how could you possibly believe that? Look at all this evidence that is showing you otherwise. This person is not trustworthy. Blah, 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 blah. Here's all the evidence. You can still believe this person is trustworthy. It's a choice. You get to believe that, right? And then your brain can find the evidence for why, for that as well. You get to believe, you can believe your job sucks, or you can believe your job is great. The best thing that ever happened to you. But it takes practice, right? And so, and when you believe, when your brain gets set on believing a thought, again, there's those neural pathways that are so deeply ingrained, and it's changing those neural pathways for the habit to become otherwise. I can find a list of reasons why I should quit my job and why my job sucks. I could totally do that. And I can find a huge list of reasons why I have the best job in the whole world. It's up to me. And again, the reason, and I can choose either way. It doesn't matter. If I want to quit my job or stay at my job, I can be happy either way. Because my happiness is a feeling that is based on my thought, which I choose. Does that make sense?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I choose my thoughts. I choose my happiness. I have the best job in the world. I can choose to think that, and then I feel the effect of that, right? Okay, so he doesn't love me anymore. That thought might make you feel rejected, right?
Mm-hmm.
Could make you feel a lot of things: angry, rejected. How do you act when you're feeling rejected? Let's say that this is you and you feel rejected.
Eat a pint of ice cream.
Huh?
You eat a pint of ice cream.
Yeah. Overeat. Maybe you complain to your friends,
Mm-hmm.
to your family, complain about him. He's such a jerk, blah, 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 blah. He's a horrible person. I should have never married him. I knew I should have never married him. My brain was telling me he wasn't true. I should have never married that guy. I knew it. See, here's all the evidence. Maybe you yell and scream and fight with him. And then what's the result that you get in your life when this is the way that you show up? I don't feel love for either one of us right now. I don't feel love for me because of the way I'm showing up. I don't feel love for you. There's no love. The love is gone. I fell out of love with my partner. How did that happen? Love is a choice. You get to cultivate the way that you feel about people based on the things you look for, the evidence you try to find, the belief systems that you have, the thoughts that you think. I hate the way my partner chooses food. I hate the way he snores. He repulses me. I don't want him to touch me. He's lazy. He shouldn't drink so much. I wish he would quit smoking. Whatever, right? So we think all these thoughts and they produce the way we feel. If you're feeling angry at someone, your boss, anyone, do a thought download. Write down all the things that you think about that person. Just be open, honest. Don't try to be mature. Dump it all out. Everything you're thinking about your job, about your kids, whatever it is that you're having negative emotion about, get it all out. And then go look at those thoughts and ask yourself, wonder why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling.
I like this. This is like an investigative tool.
Yeah.
Because like I know like I try to journal, but it's really, I feel like it doesn't, I don't know. I feel like I keep writing down the same kind of feelings over and over again.
Yeah.
I feel like a broken record, but
yeah. And that's why, honestly, this does help to do this with somebody. Like I said, I've been doing this. I mean, I'm a coach. I teach this. I do it with other people. But I still have a coach that I do this with. Because that's the other thing about belief systems is they can be really sneaky. and you're like, and you don't sometimes, even though there's a lot of things where I know my thoughts are optional,
Yeah.
I still get caught. Like just this past week, I had a session with my coach, and I was like, this and this, and she's like, can you hear yourself? And I was like, and then she's like, what you just said, and I'm thinking this thing is totally just a truth. It's a circumstance. This is a fact.
Mm.
And she's like, that is not a fact. That is a thought you were thinking. What's the belief system behind? And then I was like, oh my gosh, my whole world was just like mind blown, right? And everything changed from that moment forward.
Mm.
Because sometimes having somebody else that's not tied to your story
Mm-hmm.
kind of help you through this can be really helpful.
Yeah.
So,
100%.
but yeah, you can totally do this yourself. And I want you guys to practice this. And again, like I said, I'm also here to do this with you. It changes your life. And that's, like I said, it takes a little bit of time and practice, but we'll get there. So it's hard to find a job. How do you feel how do you act when you're thinking that thought? It's hard to find a job. Well, let's start first here. So if you're noticing yourself that you're having a thought, then I want you to first go up and be like, it's hard to find a job. So this is what we're starting with. I did this in the wrong one, didn't I?
That's a thought, not a feeling.
I put it in the wrong. I put it in the wrong one. Yeah, it's a thought. Hard to find a job. So what are the circumstances that are making you think it's hard to find a job? This is just an example. So you can start with a thought.
The fact that I send out 3 to 5 emails, email my resume 3 to 5 times a week right now.
Okay, sure. So I sent out resumes and with no response yet.
Right.
Fact. I sent out this many resumes and 0 responses. That would
Right.
be a fact. I have not worked since April, right? Or whatever.
Right.
Whatever it might be. So that's the circumstance. So that's factual, right? This is the circumstance. So my thought is it's hard to find a job. How do you feel when you think the thought it's hard to find a job?
Frustrated,
Totally.
defeated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Discouraged.
Anxious.
Yeah. Anxious. All these things. Totally. Maybe even triggered. Nobody loves me. Nobody wants me. I'm not good enough. Can come up with all kinds of stuff. But yeah, so it's hard to find a job. And you think that thought, and so you feel discouraged, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
How do you act and show up in your life when you feel discouraged?
You don't make an effort to or you stop caring.
Yeah, totally. You don't don't look for work.
Yeah.
You stop sending in resumes, maybe.
You sit on your couch pantsless for a week.
Yeah, right? Watch TV, binge YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound about right to everyone?
Yep.
Okay, what's the result you get when you think it's hard to find a job? I feel discouraged. I'm going to eat ice cream, watch TV, and not bother sending out resumes this week.
You don't get a job.
Yeah. Result is I still don't have a job. And I don't know what to do with my life. I still don't have a job. I don't know what to do with my life. And now look what happens. This result is totally supporting your entire belief system.
It's kind of like, well,
self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, it's kind of like, well, you still don't have a job. Well, no wonder, because you had a thought.
Can you see how it's tied to your belief? It all starts with your thought.
Yeah.
So
it's a little bit like the law of attraction thing. It's like, well, if you think that, then
Yeah, it is. And that's why people are like, oh, manifestation, well, it's so woo woo, but it's really, it's like magic is just science we don't understand yet, right?
But
So when you really break it down, be like, this is how it works, it makes total sense. And this is different than an affirmation, because
Mhm.
I'm going to show you when you flip it around, the way you change it is then you're like, okay, and then we choose the feelings we want to have. Okay, I want a job. What do I need to do in order to get a job? How do I need to send out this many resumes. I need to apply for jobs that maybe I don't even want. I need to do this. These are the actions I need to take. How do you need to feel in order to do that? So I'll show you that way. And that's where, and this is what we're going to do next. So let's start with a result. So let's say for my business, let's say I want to make this impossible dream. I want to blow up my business next year, and I want my business revenue to equal $100,000 in 2021, let's say. That's my goal. That's the result I want. What's the result you want? I want to have a happy marriage. I want to have kids that listen to me. I want to have a job that I love. I want to have this much in my bank account. I want my body I want to weigh, 155 pounds, whatever it might be for you, right?
The destination is the way.
The destination is the way. Exactly. So you can start with the result. This is what I want. Okay. So now what we're going to do is if this is what I want, where am I at right now? So maybe I'll say, just as an example, be like, this is what I want. Let's say I only made 10K in 2021. See how or in 2020, let's say, as an example. See how that's a fact? This is what I made. This is what I want to make. This is what I weigh. This is what I want to weigh. This is what's happening in my relationship right now. This is what I want my relationship to look like. Okay. So now when you start with the result, what you do is you work your way up the model. If this is what I want my life, my relationship, my bank account to look like, what are the actions I need to take? So maybe I need to invest 30K in Facebook ads. And I need to sign 50 new clients, at X amount of cost, and you write in, this is how many sessions I need to run. This is how many programs I need to do. This is how much I need to invest. These are the actions that I need to take. I need to run, 200 webinars next year in order to do that, or whatever it might be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I want to have lose X amount of weight, this is what I need to do. If I want to have more love in my relationship, maybe I need to be a more understanding, empathetic partner. What does that need to look like? Whatever. I need to not yell so much. I need to have better communication. I need to, I don't know, whatever that might be. If this is the action I need to take, how do I need to feel in order to take that action?
Ambitious.
Yeah. Sure.
I don't know.
Confident.
Yeah. Determined.
Excited to take a risk, not scared to take a risk.
Totally excited, a bit confident, all these things. So if I know I need to feel excited, confident, determined in order to do this big task that I have laid out in front of me, what is the thought that I need to think in order to feel that way?
I'm going to make $100,000 next year.
Yeah, exactly. I am going to make this happen.
I am worthy of this.
Yeah. And I want to point something out to you guys too. No matter what comes up, no matter the obstacle, because I have the emotional resiliency to deal with it. Yeah.
That's what happens to me.
Because you make a goal, you make a commitment to do something hard, and inevitably shit is going to come up. I call it Brooke calls it the river of misery. It is the river of misery. If you're ever going to accomplish anything hard in your life, if you're going to raise a child, if you're going to start a business, if you're going to, have, a long-term relationship, if you're going to, be a flight paramedic or a doctor or finish a medical degree, anything, whatever you set your heart out for, whatever commitment you make. And that's why the clarity and having that really strong why matters. Because when you step your foot in that river to go to the other side, where your dream is, where your goal is, buckle your seatbelt, babe. Because stuff is going to come up. It is going to be hard. And that's why you have to have that reason. Like, I want this, because you are going to start to feel all kinds of things. You're going to thoughts are going to come up. Belief systems are going to come up. This wasn't a good time to do this. This is too hard. Obviously, this isn't working. We're fighting too much. My boss is a jerk. This isn't good for me. I can't do this. I don't, whatever it is. And as far weight loss, you feel discouraged. Maybe this wasn't the time for me. It's the middle of COVID. This isn't a time for me to go on a diet, and all these thoughts are going to come up, and you're going to want to change your commitment. I'll do it later. This was not the time for me to do a master's degree. There's always going to be challenges. You are going to go through the muck and the mire and the darkness, and you are going to be shown the deepest part of yourself. You're going to be shown shame. You're going to be shown regret. You're going to feel anger. You're going to feel disappointment, discouragement. You're going to feel resentment. You're going to feel self-doubt. And that's why that process, that piece of knowing what to do with those difficult emotions and looking at them is so important. That's where emotional resiliency is required. You have to have it. And not only to be able to process the hard stuff, but be able to choose the good stuff, the confidence, the commitment, the ambition. How do I find peace in the middle of a pandemic? Right? How do I find peace in the middle of a pandemic?
How do what? What did you ask?
How do I find peace
in the
middle of the pandemic?
You
Anxiety.
learn gratitude for what the new gifts you're finding that you didn't expect to find, and you take long looks at what you're missing and figure out how to cultivate that back.
You slow down.
Process. So I did a whole video on the creating relationships that you love part, and so we man, we can do this with anything. We can do it with work. We can do it with money. We can do it with anything.
It's kind of like a game.
It is. It's fun. And yeah, it's fun. I love it. And like I said, it really will change your life if you commit to it. How do you guys feel about this? Anyone who hasn't spoken up yet that has some thoughts? You guys like it?
Yeah.
I'm jazzed.
Sense?
I've learned some new skills, like Karina was saying during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I've had time to do stuff I usually don't have time to. So that's, like she said, try to think about the positive things.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have a lot of extra time on your hands for your mind to go places. So
Your brain can always find evidence for anything you want it to find evidence for. Absolutely. Yeah. And so it's and like I said, it's okay to feel frustrated. It's okay to feel the negative, but just really know that it's a choice. And is this what I'm wanting to feel? Is this what I'm wanting? It's okay to leave your job, but make sure that you're not doing it because you think you're going to be happier somewhere else. Because happiness is a feeling that you create. You can be happy anywhere. You can be happy in your job. You can be happy in a different job. You can be miserable in your job. You could be miserable at your next job. It's just a circumstance. The partner that you have, I could be happy with an abusive partner. What? Totally could. Do I want to? That's different, right? It doesn't mean that I have to, but I totally could. And there are people that stay with abusive partners for years, right? And they feel nothing but love. Oh, I love him. I love him. And they stay, right? And they're maybe even happy. And they are just so grateful. And we could say that's dysfunctional, and that's okay. We can talk more about that later, talking about boundaries and what does that mean and all that kind of stuff. But just to push your mind a little bit, right? I can be happy in any situation. Viktor Frankl, that wrote The Last of Human Freedoms, he was in the Nazi concentration camps, being abused and starved and deprived.
Oh yeah. There's-
How did he, and yet he realized these are circumstances. They can do whatever they want to my body, to my circumstances. I get to control how I feel. So if you want to feel love and happiness and joy and peace and contentment and confidence and gratitude, if you want to feel those things, there's not a single goddamn thing in your life that you have to change in order to feel those things. You can feel them right now. It's 5 minutes away. Once you master this skill, once you get it, but it really is. And you can feel all those things and still decide, I feel so grateful for my job. This is such a great, I'm so happy in this job. And I want to leave and go find another one. It doesn't mean you have to stay. And that's what I was saying before is the biggest obstacle to us meeting our goals so often is that we think we have to be miserable in order to make a change. I have to hate my body in order to change my body.
Mhm.
I have to be miserable with my partner in order to leave my partner. No, you don't. I have to be happy with my partner, or happy with my job in order to stay at the same job. No, you can change how you feel regardless of your circumstances. So that's just for you to decide. What do you want? Do you want to feel angry? That's okay if you do. It's okay to feel angry. I hope you don't stay there for too long because you'll get burnt out of that. But know that you have control over that. I'm feeling triggered. Great. There's a whole process for what to do when you're feeling triggered, and you don't have to stay triggered for your whole life. You don't have to continue in that pattern. You can explore that trigger and understand it and learn how to manage it. There's some levers here, and you have some control over these things. Okay, so that's what I'm kind of trying to give you, is some levers to pull. No matter what happens in my life, if I get dumped, evicted, sick, if I get diagnosed with leukemia, if I get, my leg has to get amputated, if I lose a child, experience the death of a loved one, all these things are hard and painful, and I will feel those. And then I can look at that and say, this is what I choose to feel about this circumstance. I choose to feel gratitude. I choose to feel confident. I choose to feel whatever. And you can choose neutral emotions. For a little while, you're like, maybe, you don't necessarily go from I hate my body to I love my body. Sometimes you just go from I hate my body to, okay, I have a body. I have a body. This body works for me. This body gets me to work. This body, allows me to do the things that I want in my life. Right? Does that kind of make sense too? You might not have to go from I hate my job to I love my job. You might just have to go from I hate my job to, okay, I have a job. I have a job. I have a job. That feels a little bit better than I hate my job, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that kind of sometimes can help too. So you don't have to be so like.
It's kind of like looking at what's true instead of, it's the circumstances and thoughts. It's like,
Right.
Like going backwards.
Right. So this is, how do we feel about all of this? Are you guys staying with me? Do you like it? Does this feel good? Does it feel useful?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think I'm a crazy lady?
No.
Feels empowering, and you might be crazy.
Yes, I am, proud to be one of the crazies. Okay, so we've only got a couple minutes left. If anyone needs to hop off, feel free to do so. I'm going to try, and we're not going to have as much time to go through these last few questions to allow you to apply it as I wanted to. If you want me to stay on and we can kind of go through it, I'm happy to stay a little longer. But if anyone needs to leave, please know that you can leave at any time. And I'm just going to at least write these down for you to consider later. Or we can talk about them a little bit now. Like I said, if you guys want to do this work a little bit deeper, I have about 2 slots left in my program for the end of this 2020 year before we move into next year. And so you guys can feel free to shoot me an email. We can do some one-on-one, talk about it, like a free session, and see if it's a good fit for you. And if you guys really want to practice this more going into next year and kind of get deeper into what's going on for you and how it works, I'm happy to talk to you about that. Okay. So this is the last part of applying it. So I want you to think about, what are your 3 most common feelings on a regular basis, at least lately? I want this. Yeah, I'll write it down. What are your 3 most common feelings?
Loneliness.
Okay.
Frustrated.
Okay. Anything else? Let's see if we can come up with 3.
I was going to say frustration, but Karina said that. So
The other thing I,
maybe anger too.
go ahead, Cree.
Anger.
Okay. There's lots of them that we could throw up here, right? Regret, anger, and they can be happy. They don't all have to be negative, but sometimes that's what comes up for us first, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um,
Hard to look at the negative stuff, or it's easier to look at the negative stuff.
exactly. And again, that's our brains are trained to go straight to the negative. Because our brains are trained to keep us safe. And that's why it makes sense. Our brains are designed to keep us safe. And so we're going to look for the person we can't trust, for the person that we're angry about, for the person that hurt us, for the person that's going to hurt us, for the person that's making our life miserable, because that's what our brains are trained to do. So we have to retrain our brain. Okay. So what is so it could be anxiety, overwhelm, anger, frustration, confusion, indecision, shame, regret, guilt, fear, resentment, self-doubt, scarcity, inadequacy, uncertainty, humiliation, insignificance. Does any of these ring a bell?
Oh, but
All of them, right? So what is, and I want you to think about this when you go home and really think about what effect does this feeling have on your life? Plug it into that model. What is this feeling? What effect is it having on your life, on your bank account, on your job, on your relationships, on your body? And how does this feeling prevent you from achieving the things that you want in your life? That's why it matters. Not just so that we feel better, but so that we can live better, right? That's why this matters. So really take some time to think about that. What are the most common feelings that you feel on a regular basis? How do they affect your life? How do they prevent you from getting what you want? And then I want you to say, now, what are the 3 most common feelings that you would like to have on a regular basis?
joy,
Uh-huh.
Peace.
Yep.
excitement.
Yeah. Okay. Totally. My handwriting is getting worse. So what are the 3 that you want? Joy, peace, excitement, stability, safety. Abundance, motivation, determined, grateful, confident, joyful, authentic, proud, connected, liked, amused, curious, adventurous, patient, loving, compassionate, inspired, dependable, competent, fulfilled, generous, talented, sexy. How do they feel? When you hear those words, how do they feel in your body? They feel good, right? And they feel like you could go conquer the world if you felt those things.
Yeah.
How would you show up in your life if we could feel those things instead of feeling angry, triggered? I snap at people when I feel that way. I lose my temper. God damn it. And then I feel regret and shame. And if I'm not careful, I'll get stuck in that shitstorm. So I got to stop myself and I got to step back and I got to try again. And I have to learn emotional resiliency. I have to learn how to come back and be the person that I want to be. And the better I get at that, the faster I do it. It doesn't mean that I don't fall down. It doesn't mean I don't fail, but it means I get better every time. And my life continues to pick its way up faster and faster and faster. And that's how we grow. So I just want you to think about that. What are you feeling most commonly? Run it through the model. Why are you feeling? What are the thoughts that are causing it? What are the 3 things that you want to feel? Okay. And I want you to think about how would this feeling, how would that impact your life, right? Everything that we just talked about. So if you're wanting to feel those things, if I'm wanting to feel excited, enthusiastic, if I'm wanting to feel loved, love, peace, whatever. Now this is where you get out a piece of paper and I want you to write down, what are all the thoughts? What do you think I'm going to say? What am I going to say, guys?
What are the thoughts I would have to feel those feelings?
Yes. Good job, Karina. Gold star. What
Yay.
are some of the thoughts that you can practice thinking? Remember, it takes practice. You have to practice new thoughts. It's like trying to close.
Or like, yeah, never mind.
No, it's good.
Never
What are
mind, it's gone. I was gonna say, I'm thinking of a specific circumstance and how it usually makes me feel, but all of the potential thoughts that I could have to change my feelings and to change that action to change the results. It's like that game. It's like the emotional resilience game.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. You should
In order
coin
to heal from anything, anxiety, overwhelm, PTSD, how do I stop the triggers? How do I feel better? In order to have any, you have to change the story that you're telling.
It's like you take a break from whatever emotion you're having,
Yeah.
and you just set that emotion aside and you go back into the logical mode.
Yeah. And you can pick it up again if you want, guys. We get really attached to our stories. They feel so true. Man, they feel so true. She should not have lied to me. How do you know she should not have lied to you? Maybe that's exactly what she should have done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you God? Do you know the way of the universe? My kid shouldn't be acting like this. He shouldn't be throwing a temper tantrum in Denny's. How do you know? Maybe that's exactly what he's supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Don't shut on yourself or other people.
But you're telling yourself a story, right? And so think about that. What are the feelings that you would like to feel? How would you like to feel about your marriage? How would you like to feel about your relationship? How would you like to feel about your body, your bank account, your job, your life, your future, your past, your parents? How would you like to feel instead? And then what are some of the thoughts that you can practice thinking that will generate that feeling? They did their best. She's doing her best.
Yeah.
Maybe she doesn't feel safe to tell me the truth right now. Maybe that makes me feel a little bit more compassion rather than anger. Can you see?
And also that you can set a boundary and keep yourself safe. Because if they're going to lie to you, that is a boundary you can set.
And you don't have to be angry. You don't have to be anything. You can think,
right.
Maybe they don't feel safe with me to tell me that. How can I show up for them lovingly and still support that person and take care of myself? You can do both at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive, but we so often get into this either or mentality.
Right.
It doesn't have to be like that. There's so many options available to us. And so I'm sorry that we didn't have time to go into more detail. This was just kind of a down and dirty 101 of kind of how it works. Like I said, I'm here. You guys know I'm here. You know how to get a hold of me. You can Facebook me, email me, find me. And we can talk more about it. And this is a game changer, everybody.
This is amazing, Robin.
All right. Well, glad you guys showed up. I hope you all have a beautiful day and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, Robin.
Okay. Bye.